Welcome to UGC lecture series in computer science on software engineering. We are seeing a series of lectures, and in this session we will be discussing a case study on software review techniques. So let us first take out a case. We have a case called online clothing store. Hope, my dear students, you would have visited many online sites and you would have done some online purchases. So let us take the example of online clothing store. So in this online clothing store, a clothing store website has many changes in requirements. The web page should be dynamic and it should reflect all offers. Customers are to be notified of all the upcoming offers. Customer database has to be maintained and special offers has to be given during their birthday and their wedding days. Offers should vary based on frequent purchase, promotional codes and that they have, and for the festival times the offer should vary, and so on and so forth. So let us first discuss the features available in this case. So first of all, you are supposed to display the products in the main page, the display links to the products, and you need to have a customer account form wherein the customer details have to be filled, and you are supposed to have a purchase cart, and you are supposed to have a customer login, and you are supposed to have the details for placing the orders for called as order placement, and then after order placement it should redirect to the payment channel, and then after making the payment either via through this credit card or debit card or net banking or any wallet basis, it should be in a position to print an e-receipt exclusively in PDF format, and then it should have an admin login, and finally there should be a customer feedback form. The customer feedback form is said to be a vital one wherein the customer has every right to give a 5-star rating or 1-star rating. So whatever he gives as a rating, then it affects the product quality. Now my dear students, we will be seeing about how a review is being done in this particular project. So before going into this review activity, let us see the steps involved in the life cycle of this case, online clothing store. First of all, you are supposed to have a product backlog. So here in this case, since the requirements changes drastically, since the requirements changes quite often, we go in for agile modeling. So as far as agile modeling is concerned, my dear students, you might be aware we will be using a methodology called as extreme programming methodology, and we will be using a framework called as Scrum framework. A framework is customizable, tailor made. So as far as this particular framework is concerned, a Scrum framework will always have a sprint, a product backlog, and then results. So let us see what are things to conduct a sprint. First of all, in order to conduct a sprint, before we do any activity, we are supposed to have a meeting. Such a meeting we call it as sprint planning meeting, and when we are going to conduct the meeting, we are supposed to note down what were the backlogs that were available, that are still available to be done in this particular sprint, or whether this backlogs is to be pushed to the forthcoming sprints. So those backlog details will be stored in the product backlog. So those backlogs will be stored in the product backlog. Now when from the product backlog it will be taken up and the sprint planning meeting will be conducted, sprint will take on. So when the sprint takes on, supposing if it is not able, we are not able to complete within the said sprint, and supposing if you are not able to deliver the minimum marketable feature as expected, then that gets stored in the sprint backlog. Then we will be having a daily scrum meeting. What is a daily scrum meeting? The daily scrum meeting tells us what a particular developer has done yesterday, what is to be done today, what sort of obstacles are in his way. So those three questions has to be answered for a daily scrum. Then finally the results will be stored, and then the results will be reviewed and the sprint will be reviewed so that we can extend our service in the forthcoming sprints. That is called as sprint review meeting. Then we will be having a release burn down charts which shows the months completed and the amount of work that is to be done. Before going into the review concept, we are supposed to note down what is the model that we are going to choose and what will happen, because when you are going to choose the correct model, then process model plays a vital role in making the project a successful one. If you are going to choose a wrong process model, it will result in failure or there will be a delay in delivery. So let us see the categories in requirement understanding. So there are two different categories. One is you will be getting all the requirements at a stretch before start of the project. The second way is the requirements will be glary. You will not be getting the requirements properly. You will not be knowing the requirements well in advance. Then in such a case we will be using the agile model. So next point is to be noted as the expected lifetime. Within how many weeks or within how many months you are going to complete your project. Whether your duration of the project is of shorter duration or whether you are going to have it as a longer duration for few months to several years. And then we are supposed to identify the risk factors. So whether the developer has a kind of domain knowledge. Even this risk factor also will be related to the customers too. Whether the customer has a domain knowledge, whether our developer has a domain knowledge, and what is the technology that is to be used. And if all the requirements and all the technology aspects, everything has been clear, then we can go ahead with the traditional model, or else we will be going ahead with the agile development model. And then we are supposed to note down the schedule constraints. How much time will it take to complete a project, and then how many resources are required to complete the project, and then what is the level of customer interaction. If the customer interaction is quite often, if he is with us always, then we can go ahead with the agile development model. If the customer interaction is very scarce, then we are supposed to go ahead with the traditional life cycle model. So the management participation, whether the top management is supporting, whether they are ready to fund fully for the entire project duration. And next we are going to see about the level of expertise. Level of expertise depends on people has good amount of knowledge, whether the developers know the technology, whether there is an expertise in working in a particular technology. So let us see the advantages of using an agile lifecycle model. In the agile lifecycle model, as I said earlier, the customer participation will be there at end of each and every sprint. The customer can change his mindset when and where he desires, and the functionality will improve on each and every stage. Minimum marketable feature will be delivered at the end of each sprint. Shorter sprints are better when compared to longer sprints. Now let us come to our exact agenda of this case. So we have a case of online clothing store. Now you know that the requirements are not fully clear because the offers may change, the page may change, the page will become dynamic, the page is not a static page, the offer changes based on customer to customer. The offer given for a customer who has a birthday or who has a wedding day is different from the offer given to a normal customer. The offer given to a regular customer is different from the offer given to a new customer. So all those things, since the requirements is not clear, we go in for the agile model. Now any model for that matter, we are supposed to do the review activity. So let us see what are the review activity and how it is to be done. As far as the review is concerned, the review will be done on requirements too. On all the phases we are supposed to go ahead with the review. Now the review will be done on the requirements. We will be checking, it will be reviewed whether we are clear with the understanding, whether all concepts have been achieved. Then we will go ahead with the design. As far as the low level design or as far as the high level design is concerned, how it is, whether you are able to get all those functionalities, whether all the contents have been coupled together. So all these things have to be reviewed then and there. That is called as a design review. Then as far as the coding is concerned, my dear students, since we have chosen this agile development model and since we have chosen extreme programming methodology as our life cycle model, you might be aware that we will be using pair programming, because under extreme programming methodology pair programming is being used. What is a pair programming? A pair programming is two people will sit together and do their coding work simultaneously. That is, when one person does the coding part, the other does the testing part. When one person does the testing part, the other does the coding part. So vice versa. So this is called as pair programming. It is most common in the extreme programming methodology, and since our requirements are highly dynamic, we go in for this extreme programming methodology. So when two persons are going to check, definitely the code has to be reviewed. One of the pair programmer will be reviewing the code that is being done by the coder, and in the other way, when one person tests, this coder will be giving his own inputs to test even more in a better way. So such a kind of review is called as code review. Then what are the other review techniques available? We have a walkthrough. What is a walkthrough? We will be walking through the entire software that has been developed, or we may even do a walkthrough for the features that have been delivered at the end of each and every sprint. Then we go in for inspections. So as far as the inspection is concerned, the inspection has been done for the coding, whether all the loops are correct, whether it follows the cyclomatic complexity, and if you are going to document it, whether the documentation is correct, so whether the documentation is free of grammatical errors, so on and so forth. So that is called as the documentation inspection, and when you are going to do inspection with respect to the code, you call it as code inspections. Now after doing this review, we go ahead with the meetings. As far as the meetings are concerned, the meeting is being classified into two types. One is called as an introspective meeting, other one is called as a retrospective meeting. What do you mean by introspect and retrospect? Introspect is you inspect within yourself. What mistake I did in the last module? How do I correct it? How do I change it? And you inspect within yourself, you call it as introspect. And as far as retrospect is concerned, what mistake a particular coder has done, you are not supposed to find fault on the coder, but you are supposed to find the fault on the coding that the coder has done. So that the kind of meeting will be done, and it is called as retrospective meeting. So now let us discuss what review is in detail. A review is a systematic examination of a document by one or more people with the main aim of finding and removing the errors early in the software development life cycle. Reviews are used to verify documents such as requirements, system design, code, test plan, and test cases. Now let us see the different stages in review. First and foremost is we have the planning stage, and then after this planning stage we have the checking entry criteria. So we will be checking the entries, how it works out in the planning. So after this gets completed, then we will be documenting whatever we have checked. So that is called as documenting incidences. Then we will be having a review meeting. So now, my dear students, you have checked from the planning, you have checked the entry criteria, and then you have documented whatever you have seen. Now we will be having a review meeting. So based on review meeting and based on the review comments, we will be examining, and after examining, if the rework is being expected, we go in for this rework, and then after rework, then if there is a defect, then those defects has to be fixed together. That is called as defect fixing. So after making or after completing the defect fixing, we go in for a follow-up meeting. So follow-up meeting will explain how a particular project, how a particular software reacted in the earlier days, and after finding the defects, after correcting the defects, how it is working and what sort of follow-up are required, and those details will be had in the follow-up meeting. Then after a follow-up meeting, we are supposed to have one other criteria called as exit criteria. So we are supposed to check the exit criteria, whether all the contents, whatever has been jolted in the documenting incidents, have been cleared. So those details will be checked in this exit criteria. If it has not been complete, then we will go ahead with this planning and the stages repeats again and again. So these are different vital stages in each and every review activity that is to be followed. Then let us see what a code review is. A code review is a systematic examination which can find and remove the vulnerabilities in the code, such as memory leaks and buffer overflows. We have undertaken a sprint. So in this sprint, at the end of each and every sprint, you will be preparing or you will be delivering a minimum marketable feature, and you will be showing the feature to the client, and you will be getting an acceptance from the client. That is what we do in a Scrum framework. So here, after the client gives or after a minimal marketable feature has been created, we go in for this release planning. Our release planning session typically takes place over a full day, sometimes even a day in excess if the program is very large and if the team is very large. All the team members participate in the session, and full delivery team and the customer representatives will also be participating. The session is highly collaborative and it will be interactive. Tools used are typically sticky notes, flip charts, storyboards and whiteboards. The commitment to the release plan will be done by all the people whoever is attending the review planning meeting, and the retrospectives will be taken care of in the retrospective session. Then we are supposed to see a review on iteration, which is called as iteration review. My dear students, when you go ahead with the agile modeling and exclusively with extreme programming methodology and with Scrum framework, these are the processes that have to be followed. So we are supposed to have an iteration review meeting. So as far as an iteration review is concerned, a meeting agenda should be circulated among the members who are proposed to attend the meeting. Incomplete stories should be identified, and either it should be carried to the next iteration or it should be kept in the product backlog. My dear students, you might be aware of what a story is, what a user story is. So any user story which is incomplete has to be identified, and either it should be placed in the product backlog or it should be traversed to the next iteration level. The working deliverable software should be shown to the customer. The feedback should be obtained from the customer and it has to be noted. So these are some of the salient points that the iteration review should contain. Then the iteration review meeting should vary between 1 or 2 hours. The iteration review will act as a good practice for the members in the team. Scrum Master and the team members should be present in the meeting. Before starting the daily Scrum meeting, the team has to follow certain rules. The rules denote the way the meeting has to be conducted. Then we have completed the iteration review meeting. So now we will be having a sort of retrospective meeting. So what is a retrospective meeting? A retrospective meeting is what sort of faults has happened in the earlier sprints by the coder. Again, we are not going to find defects on the coder, but we are going to find the defects that the coder has done in the coding or in the programming part. So only coding defects will be checked and not the coder's defects will be checked. So before conducting a retrospective meeting, what are the do's and don'ts that we are going to see in the before retrospective meeting? A retrospective meeting should be held at the end of each sprint and at predefined intervals. The team should decide the members of the team who wishes to attend the meeting. It depends on the topic that is to be discussed. There should be a facilitator for each meeting. The facilitator should be a common man. He should not be generally person who is involved in the project. He can be a member who does not belong to the current team. Then what is to be done during the retrospective meeting? A meeting agenda should be circulated among the members who are proposed to attend the meeting. There should be a brainstorming session. All the team members should be made to participate in the discussion. The retrospective meeting will act as a good practice in giving collective ownership among the team members. The team members, product owner, Scrum Master and the facilitator should be present in the meeting. My dear students, I suppose you might be aware of who are the team members in an agile team, who is a product owner, who is a Scrum Master and who is a facilitator. Again, to repeat, team members or the members or the developers who work or the testers who work in your agile team. The product owner will either be a customer or customer representative. Then the Scrum Master will be similar to your project manager in your traditional lifecycle model. A Scrum Master is a person who allocates work to your team members. So he will be a similar person as a project manager in the traditional model. And a facilitator will be a person, generally a member outside the project team. So these are the members who are mandatorily needed to be present for the meeting. We have seen what are the contents that we require before the meeting and during the meeting. Now let us see what are the contents that are required after the retrospective meeting. So the improvements have to be implemented in the forthcoming sprint. The good practices and the things that went on well should be shared outside the team by just drafting it, or you can even pass it as a circular to all the members whoever is outside the team, so that they can get benefited, so that they can avoid those pitfalls when they are going to work out in their own projects. Then let us see the don'ts in the retrospective meeting. As far as the don'ts in the retrospective meeting are concerned, the members should not blame others in the discussion hall for not doing the things as expected. The members should not resolve conflicts between other team members. The team members should not give feedback on poor performers or on poor performances. They should stop saying ifs and buts during the meeting. So let us see the general guidelines that are required for conducting a review meeting. So as far as a review meeting is concerned, the time boxing is a major theme. That is, a particular meeting, it should start in a particular time and it should end up in a particular time. The time limit should not be exceeded at any cost. So the time boxing is a major theme. The meeting should start and end with the stipulated time. Boards and markers have to be effectively utilized. Owners, who are said to be the product owners, have to be identified and their action points should be derived. Every task taken place during meeting have to be displayed in the board so that people whoever is present for the meeting will be made aware of the tasks that were discussed during the meeting. Now, my dear students, let us summarize of whatever we have seen with respect to the review and with respect to the case. So, as far as the case study is concerned, we have been given a case study on online clothing store. So, wherein the requirement changes drastically. So, when you are going to work out your software and when you are going to create a software, so you are supposed to have review meetings quite often. Then only you can get a successful software. And before you could go in with a review meeting, it is primarily you are supposed to select the process model. So when you are going to select the right process model, definitely your project will be half successful. You are halfway through in the successful line, and it will be 100% achieved when you are going to have frequent reviews. Now, my dear students, let us summarize of whatever things we have seen in this session. So, choosing the right process model plays a vital role in making the project a successful one. If a wrong model is chosen, it will result in failure and or it will result in delay in delivery. In the given case of an online clothing store, review, inspection and walkthroughs play a major role in the success of the project. The meeting plays a key role in the outcome of the project. Do's, don'ts and the general guidelines to be followed in the review techniques were discussed in relevance to the above mentioned case study online clothing store. And these are some of the references that have been quoted for your future study. Thank you.